I'd like to take a minute to talk a little bit about the actual cost of this deck. Now, as you might have noticed, or if you're looking at the table, I'm playing with a number of foils, and my basic lands are a little... I happen to like the unglued basic lands, so I'm playing these. And this particular version of the deck is more expensive than it needs to be. If you checked the tappedout.net description in the description, the tappedout.net link in the description, it'll give you an estimate on the cost for this deck. This deck itself is actually pretty affordable considering all of the little kid dragons that the deck plays, because, you know, I like little kid dragons. So I think you can build this deck for probably $200 or $300. Now, not the version as you see here, but you can build a version of this deck for $200 or $300, and it may have actually dropped since I think Scion got reprinted in Scion got reprinted in the Dragons Commander box, so the Scion actually got a little bit more affordable. Anyway, the point being, you don't have to have a super expensive EDH deck to play 5 colors, and you can actually take the mana base that I talk about with this deck and some of the mana fixing. You might have to tweak it a little bit depending on the specific EDH deck you're going with, but you can build a 5-color deck relatively affordably. Like I said, the mana base for this deck is maybe $5, something like that. Because if you look at the mana itself, it's basic lands, it has command tower, which these are, I don't know, $1 or $2. And then basics. Evolving Wilds are common, they're effectively free. The Naya Panorama, the Panoramas, they're common cards. Again, they're not expensive at all. The Transguild Promenade, you could probably pick up a foil for like a quarter, maybe a dime. Ash Barons, I mean, they're like under $1, I'm sure. And Terramorphic Expanse, again, a cheap common. And Rupture Spire, which you might as well pick up a foil Rupture Spire because, again, they're also cheap. And then Panorama, the rest are basics. So, again, most of these you can find in just a box somewhere. And the other ones are super cheap. I think the most expensive land is indeed a command tower. So, you know, you can get the mana base for your 5-color deck for $5. And the main thing, if you're going to use that kind of mana base, though, is make sure you take into account the casting costs. Like, you wanna be very careful anytime you consider putting in a card that has a double mana symbol, like it takes double black, or it takes double green, or whatever. What I did with this particular deck is I picked a primary color, which was red, and I picked a secondary color, which was, in this case, the deck was green, and then the tertiary color was black, and then I had 2 other colors. And there's hardly any blue, hardly any white, and then there's the most red, green, and black. And what I tried to do is I tried to avoid doubles of any mana symbol, and if I had to have a double mana symbol, I limited it as best I could to red only, and then the 1 double black. So the point being, this deck plays surprisingly well, and if you are thinking carefully about your mana selections when you search for mana and when you play out your hand, it works out really well most times. But the one of the things you have to realize when you're playing a deck like this is you have to always keep the colors of mana you need in mind, and you have to plan around it. Like, if you are going to need to board wipe on turn 6, you need to make sure you're ready to get that second black by turn 6. And it's one of those things that if you mess up and you needed a double red instead of double black on turn 6, it could cost you the game. And you just have to make sure you plan as best you can for that. Now, a lot of the cards will fix that. Like Gilded Lotus fixes that really well. If you have a command tower and then a bunch of basics, the command tower smooths out a lot of stuff. as does the Rupture Spire and the Transguild Promenade. But you just have to be constantly aware of your mana and the colors of your mana. Anyway, it's just something you got to watch out for.